it's Neva. I'm here today to tell you what the top 1% of high performing wholesalers, what we know that you guys do not know, that is preventing you from ever getting your numbers correct to have a deal. There's really not that much competition in wholesaling because most people don't know what they're doing because they're not focusing on what they need to focus on. The first number that you need to learn is after repair value. If you don't calculate after repair value correctly, nothing else that you do, none of the other numbers are going to make sense for you to have a deal. So the first thing is, for after repair value, what you need to look for is, we call it comparable houses that have sold, that you're comparing to your subject property. Now, grab some tea or coffee, wine, whatever you do, because I'm gonna go over a lot of things. So this video may be long. And two, I'm gonna do another video that's more detailed, because this one is really, it's gonna be long, but this one is really just high level, what you at least need to do first. And then there's a second step you got to do when you're really trying to get your after repair value to be even more accurate. But this first video is the stuff that I'm like, if you're not even doing this, just throw everything else you're doing in the garbage, you know, because that's what I really want to do when you send me an email or call me and say you got a deal and I'm like, your comps are wrong, you know. I just be like, Lord Jesus. So after repair value, this is the value of a property after it's been repaired. It is renovated, it's in, you know, everything is brand new, you know, it's staged, it's gorgeous. The house is in gorgeous condition. That's its after repair value. This is how much we're estimating this house will be valued after a rehabber comes and renovates the property, okay? Because people constantly will talk about and just throw out the 70% rule when it comes to wholesaling, or 65%, meaning you need to get the property at that percent. But here's the thing. People say, oh, I got the property 65%. If the after repair value is incorrect, then you don't have the property at 65% of after repair value. What you need to find are similar houses, or what we call comparable houses to your property, that are in a after repair value state. So one of the things you have to look for, if we have like a rough estimate of a mile, that houses that are within a mile. And we'll also say, like, if the house is in the subdivision, you need to use comps for houses that have sold in that exact same subdivision. So real estate is very, very local. So that's why we have like these rough estimate rules. Like saying your comps are within a mile, that's a rough estimate rule. And then you got to dig deeper after that, because I will tell you, there's some areas, houses within a mile, that's too far, okay? So within a mile is a rough estimate. And if you are in a subdivision, you want to first use houses that have sold in that subdivision. So what I'll tell people, you don't have access to MLS, go on Zillow, put in your subject property address and do the map view, and you want to find houses that have sold, that are comparable to your property within the last, you want to start with the last 30 days because that's more recent. And if you don't get enough data, like you pull in for the last 30 days and you only see one house, that's not enough to do a comparable analysis, right? So you want to have multiple properties. So you're going to keep, at that point, you can start to go further out. So you can do 30 days, and then if you don't have enough, do 60 days. If you don't have enough, do 90 days. Now, there's been times I've had a property and no house has sold. I had to go all the way back to a year. The key here is that when you start going past 90 days, 4 months, 5 months, you got to be careful when you do your comps, because the season has changed. And when the seasons change, it does impact how much the exact or similar houses will sell for. Meaning, a lot of times in certain areas, houses will sell for more in spring than they're going to sell for winter, even though it's the exact same house, okay? Now, here, like I said, I'm going to give you the stuff that top wholesalers are doing. A lot of times people pull their comps and they ask an agent, a real estate agent, to pull their comps. You got to be careful with that, because a lot of times when they pull those comps from MLS, it does not include off-market properties. So you want to make sure that your comps include, if there were off-market properties that sold in that area, that's a comp, you need it. If there's a house that just sold last week that's dead smack next to your subject property, you need to calculate that. You need to know that. But say if it was like a for sale by owner or something, that's what I mean when it's like off market, you need to know the data for that. So you can check, you can go on Zillow. Zillow will have it. You know, Redfin, Trulia, these types of websites will a lot of times have the off market property for sale by owner. You could also check the tax records and pull and see, you know, if there's something that's sold. So you want properties in MLS that are similar to yours for comps, and off-market property. You know, you just want as much data as you can, because when you're calculating after repair value, it's not a guess, right? You need data for you to do any type of analysis. The more data you can get, the more accurate your estimate will be. So you want data, right? When you're, just think after repair value, how much data can I get on these houses so that my estimate is correct? Think of it that way, okay? So I'm gonna tell you the items that are on my list, that's what I'm including when I'm pulling and selecting which houses I'm going to use to include in my comp. So we already did location, that, you know, we will be pulling within a mile, we'll be pulling within the same subdivision. The other thing you want to check is when you pull those houses, are they in the same school district? So that makes a difference, because that's why I said sometimes in some areas a mile is too big, because when you check and look at the other houses, they may not be in the same school district. You want to compare houses that are in the same school district because the street quality. And I've learned this the hard way when I've had to sometimes go back, because my cash buyers have asked me to go back and get a lower price because I pulled comps. But what the rehabber would tell me is, this comp, it is in the same neighborhood, but the house is on a busier street than like a cul-de-sac or something. That does impact how much a house will sell for. People will pay more to be on a quiet street than to be on a busy street. And me, now that I think it through as a woman with kids, I don't really want to buy it. I'm not going to pay a premium price for a house that's on a busy street, because, you know, my kids were outside playing. I don't want cars zooming down, you know, down the street. So I definitely see how that makes sense. Real estate is so location specific. I can't stress that enough. That's why I tell people, you have to really just take a day, take weeks. Just go on Zillow, go on Google Maps, drive through the areas you're looking to invest. You got to learn the area, because real estate is very location, okay? So street quality, you want to look at that. Is this a quiet street or is this a busy street? You want to compare similar things. If your house is on a quiet street, you need another house on a quiet street to compare for your to calculate your comp analysis. The lot size, you want to look, is it on an acre, half an acre? It could be the same house size, but you want to look, hey, is the lot the same? Because, you know, people are going to pay more if it's more land, hey. So you want to look that it's about the same lot size. The other thing I have on here is the house size. For the square feet, you want to look that the houses are within, the most I would say I do 20%. They need to be within 20% the same square feet. So you can't compare a house that is 2,000 square feet to a house that's 5,000 square feet. That's not a comparable house for you to pull and include when you're doing your analysis. So you want to look at square feet. The square feet needs to be similar. You know, you need a house that's 3,000 square feet and your other house is 3,100 square feet. Things like that. They need to be really close in square feet, because that impacts how much this house will sell. Like I'm telling you, these are the top things. These are things that, you know, we've been through all the learning curve. We're trying to make money. We're not trying to lose money. We need the numbers to be accurate. I'm telling you, this is what top 1% of wholesalers, this is what we're calculating when we're doing after repair value, okay? So I know y'all looking like, this is a lot of stuff. I thought I was going to pull 3-4 houses, and then I was, no. All right. Okay, what's the next thing on my list? It's so funny. When I started, I thought this was like a given, but I'm surprised how many times people have sent me comps. It's a 3-bedroom house compared to a 2-bedroom house. I'm like, throw this whole thing in the garbage. You cannot include in your comparable analysis a 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom house. No. If your house is 3 bedrooms, you need to find another house that has 3 bedrooms. If your house is 4 bedrooms, you need to find another house that has 4 bedrooms. Bedrooms make a big difference. The number of bedrooms must be the same, okay? And like I said, this is your rough estimate starting out. You want to pull similar houses, but for bedrooms, 3, they need to be the exact same number of bedrooms. Baths, the same thing. Right now, I can tell you, people love bathrooms. It makes a big difference if one house has 2 full baths and then the other house has 2.5 baths. Bathrooms, I mean, we just live in luxurious right now. People don't want to wait. People don't want to share bathrooms. Bathrooms must be similar. Do not compare houses that do not have the same number of bathrooms, okay? So when you're looking, if your house is 3 bedrooms, that house needs to be 3 bedrooms. If your house has 2 baths, the comps you pull need to have 2 baths, okay? They must have the same number of bedrooms and the same number of bathrooms, because that definitely makes a difference in how much people will pay for that house. What else I got? Oh, the age of the property. Okay, so if you have a house that's like, if your house is, was built like in 1980, and then there's a new development across the street, and those houses are, they're brand new, that is not, that's not a house that you need to include in your, when you're doing your comp analysis, that your house was built in 1980 and these houses are going to be brand new, built in 2020, 2021. No, they need to be, around the same age and things like that. So that's why I said, if it's in the same subdivision, usually you're already going to have that. But once you start going in areas where it's not a subdivision and you do end up going a mile out, sometimes you are going to come across your house was built in 1980 and maybe there's a new development, like I said, that was built in 2000. Like, I would not include a house that is, 40 years newer than my house. I would not include that when I'm doing my comp analysis, okay? Parking, garage. If your house has a garage, if your house has a 2-car garage, I would recommend you pull houses that have 2-car garages. A lot of times, people will pull a house, it has the same number of bedrooms, has the same number of baths, but one doesn't have a garage and one doesn't. That makes a big difference, because some people, I could tell you, just for the real estate agent side, there are people that will not consider a house without a garage. So that right there impacts the buyer pool for who is going to be interested in this rehab house, because some buyers are not going to be interested in a house with no garage. So that's why it impacts price. So if your house has a garage, you need to pull houses that have garages, and it needs to be, I would say, the same number. Like, if your house has a 1-car garage, don't pull comps that have 2-car garages, because I'm telling you, people are particular about parking and things like that. So you want to pull, like I said, you're trying to get houses that are as similar as possible to your house, okay? That's how you really get your comps to be accurate, okay? You got to pull the data, and the data has to be correct. Oh, heating and cooling. I know people probably like, well, of course the house got heating and cooling. The thing here is you need to look. If one house has like central air, or if central air is just, dominant, that's just what all the houses have in your area and things like that, you want to check that the houses that you pull have the same heating and like AC. So like here, I can tell you it's common to have central air. And if I had to put a house on the market here without central air, I would just calculate that we need to rehab this house and put in central air, because that would be you know, like unheard of to try to sell a house here without central air. So that's why you want to look in your area, you know, what is the common, you know, heating and AC, and just make sure you're pulling houses that have the same thing. Okay, now for the basement, you want to look and see if you can get, is the basement finished or unfinished. This does impact price. That people are going to pay more for a finished basement than an unfinished basement, and I'm talking, that could be a lot. Like, you know, here you could be talking between $25,000 and $50,000, the difference that people will pay in a house that has a finished basement and one that does not. Okay, and maybe even could be a bigger price difference, but on average, definitely there's going to be a difference if the basement is finished or unfinished. Or if your house has a basement, don't pull houses that do not have basements at all. Like, so get coffee, get tea. I can tell you, so that you can feel better about this, when I first started, it used to take me hours to calculate after repair value. Okay, but that's what I can say. After you've done this over and over and over and over and over, you will start to do and calculate after repair value really quickly. Like now I can calculate after repair value quickly, but that's why I said give yourself time to actually learn, so that you can come out here and make deals and cash checks for $40,000. Okay, but you got to learn this stuff and know what you're doing. Okay, so give yourself time to learn. And the only time you go, after you watch this video, you got to go out and pull some comps and practice doing it. Don't wait until you get something under contract and you're trying to calculate after repair value. You need to go and practice over and over and over, 50 times, 100 times, calculating after repair value, because it has to be correct. Remember, if your after repair value is not correct, what did Neva say? Throw the whole thing out. Okay, throw everything else out, because the numbers are not valuable. If your after repair value is not correct, whatever you're doing, it's not valuable information. You're just wasting your time. Okay, so pools, I want to include pools because I know that some people are like in Florida, and I bring this up because Florida, places like Florida, my mom lives in Florida, and I can tell you that a pool makes a big difference. Like here where I am, that's not really something that's like common, but in Florida it's common for houses to have pools. So you want to be careful to at least add that on your list to look at. That, you know, if you're in a place like Florida, probably more hot places, I think Arizona, where, you know, people want a pool, you want to make sure that, hey, does your house have a pool? So like I said, I have this list here, and even to this day I can just go in, yes, 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 and put numbers in and calculate it quickly. So just have it on your list. If you know, you'll learn if you know pools, because here for me, sometimes a pool is a negative. People love the house and they're like, but I don't want a pool. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. At least have it on the list to consider. And you'll, as you keep doing this, you'll see the impact that it has in prices when houses do have a pool and when they do not. Okay, the next thing is the view. And you do not have to leave your house for this, because like I said, you need to use Google Maps, because a lot of areas you could literally, I mean, I have zoomed all the way in, okay, on Google Maps. If you know, if it's not on Google, then yes, drive out and really look and see once you've got your list down. The reason why you need view is, of course, that's going to impact it. Just like how I was saying, if you're on a busy street or curb, you have to see what is in front of this house, what is behind this house, because that does impact things. And I'll give you an example. I had one where, you know, I was doing the comp, because I do a lot at home first before I even go out to the house. So I did a lot of comps and all this stuff. When I went to the house, because the back of the house was to a busy street, that was not on the Google Maps yet. They built one of those sounding proof walls. Well, then I gotta, you know, I had to adjust down my price for that, because that's not appealing. A lot of people are not gonna want that. You know, they're like, you know, I want to be on a quiet, nice road. I don't want, you know, and plus, even when I went, I was like, oh, the backyard, I wouldn't like that. I don't want my backyard to be this big gray block wall thing, you know. So that's why I'm saying you got to see like what is the view that people see. Or even if, you know, you had like a house that was like, you know, it had like a lake view, an ocean view, you can't compare that to a house that backs to a supermarket or something. So you got to consider like the view, and that's why I said I have learned over the years too that's a busy street. That comes into that. Some people don't like the view and the noise from the busy street. Okay, and then boom, condition. Here's the thing: when we're calculating after repair value, we're calculating after this house has been renovated. It's gonna look, you know, brand new. Rehabbers gonna come in just like on HGTV. It's gonna be the bomb. We're gonna be like, woo, I'm gonna want to move in, right? So when you pull when you're pulling property to use to do your analysis, you want to pick the properties that are in that condition, right? So if you look, the house is dark, it's raggedy, there's old stuff, the pictures online, there's people in the picture, that is not the house that you want to pick for your after repair value. Your after repair value, after you've pulled all this stuff to make sure these houses are similar, you want to now hand pick the prettiest houses, the houses that were staged, the houses that are like, you know, they're just a 10 online. You want the houses that are renovated, they're in great shape, new appliances, new paint, new floors, those are the houses that you want to pull. Everything else, do not include them, because your house, after it's, even when you're wholesaling, that is what the number, that after repair value, the rehabber is looking, what is this house going to sell for after I fix it up? So I don't want a comp for a house that's raggedy, because my house is not going to be raggedy after I fix it up. So condition after that, you got to pick the prettiest houses, okay? So stay tuned to video 2, where I'm going to get into what do you do when sometimes, you know, you just can't get all these similarities, or I'm just going to tell you some more things that you need to include, because like I said, after repair value is a very detailed calculation you need to do, but the more you do it, you'll start calculating ARV like this. Like now I can do it like this, and like I told you when I first started, if I got a call for one lead, it would take me hours to calculate after repair value. Then I would send it to my mentor to check it, because I'd be concerned if it was correct. It's take me a long time. Because all of this was new to me. I wasn't a real estate agent then. So everything that I was learning that was important, that needed to be included in after repair value, was new to me. So that's what I'm telling you. You can learn this and it's going to be easy. But I think one of the main problems I see is people focus on learning the wrong things. They're so focused on the check that they're not, like, people are like, they've never closed a deal. They're like, oh, but what am I going to do? I can't find funding. Oh, wait, I need to find a contract. I'm like, before you get to all that, you got to understand the numbers and what these numbers mean in this business, okay? This is a business. You got to take it serious. If you talking about you want to make $100,000, $200,000, I've done that, but you can't do that. You can't do that. You're not going to go to the bank, be able to cash checks, and you don't know what you're talking about, okay? You got to have knowledge, and you got to have wisdom, and wisdom, all wisdom is hey, you got the knowledge, now you know how to apply it. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of times people know, they're like, oh, the 70% rule. How do you apply the 70% rule? That's what you need to know, and this is how you apply it. This is how you know what needs to be included. All right, so I'm gonna see you next video. I love you. Take care. Bye bye.